Welcome to Beyond Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Petralis, and we are super excited for today's guest. Before we jump into him really quick, I want to give a shout out to a new collab that we're going to be doing with the Retired Athletes Club, Mackenzie Mallet of Salem State, former Salem State captain of girls hockey. But she came out with this really cool line, something for us old geezers that used to play sports once upon a time. And I think it's really cool. It hits upon a lot of ages, a lot of demographics, different colors, different designs, and something that I think is going to blow up soon. Just got established in late 2023, early 2024. So something you're going to see popping up. But we're excited to be, collabing with them and working with them, and hopefully doing a lot of work with them. So, but on to our guests. I'm super excited to have this kid on. I've been following him honestly since his sophomore season. I kept my eye on Shawsheen Tech basketball this year. And if anybody else did, you would see this guy's name popping up all the time. I just got his official statistics talking to him before we came off the air, but averaging 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks a game. So just an absolute savage all around. Basically averages a double-double. And is only a junior, so he's got one more year. So we're going to jump into a lot of different things about how his summer seasons look, at what type of sport, what type of hoops he's playing in the offseason, and most important, the recruiting process with those numbers. I'm sure there's a lot of schools knocking at his door. So without further ado, from Shawsheen Tech High School, ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Breen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good intro, dude. Good intro.
Good intro. Yeah.
When
Thank
you
you.
go to college, man, I'll be your hype man. I'll be your hype man. You just let me know.
Thank you.
I'll give you killer intros all the time. So, but on to seriousness. Really, thanks for coming on. I have a great relationship with Shawsheen Tech, and it goes back to my coaching days of coaching high school football, and even my playing days in 2001. 2000 was my senior season in football. Was the first time we ever played Shawsheen Tech, and it was our first
Really?
game ever under the lights, and it was our opening night. And that rivalry continued for about 18 years of opening day, where it's converted recently into Thanksgiving, which really hasn't been a rivalry, but you guys have been kind of snow plowing us. But like, I love Coach Costabile. We've always loved Shawsheen. I've had a lot of respect for them. Was always a great opener as a player, but also as a coach, like tough kids. And so, rooting you guys on, especially during football season. We covered a couple of the games this year. We covered some wrestling, and hopefully we'll cover some hoop next year with you tearing up the court a little bit. But so a lot of respect for Shawsheen Tech that I have. But just for our audience, man, tell everybody a little bit about you. Who you are. Basketball is obviously the sport that you play. It's the only sport that you play. So this is kind of your ride or die here. So talk a little bit about your history into hoops, and obviously making the decision also to go to Shawsheen Tech.
So, when I was younger, I was mainly like a football, hockey kid. But I played all sports. I played football, hockey, lacrosse, and basketball. And I did that up until about seventh grade. And I dropped lacrosse in seventh grade, and I was mainly just football, hockey, and basketball. And then COVID messed up football, so we didn't have a football season my eighth grade year. And then it was just down to hockey and basketball. And obviously, I couldn't play hockey and basketball. So then freshman year was like my first year, like going all in with basketball. And I played freshman football too, but I kept getting hurt. So I decided just to stick with basketball.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So for you, let me ask you this. How tall are you right now?
I'm 6'9".
You're 6'9". So he's a real tall. So where did you hit that spurt? Like, where did you hit a growth spurt, or were you always kind of tall
Yes.
growing up?
I was always pretty tall, but
Okay.
around like seventh and eighth grade, I started kind of like level out with everyone. Like everyone was catching up to me. And I was like, oh, I'm probably only gonna end up being like 6'3", 6'4", that's what the doctors would say. And then going into freshman year, I like went from like 6'3" to like 6'6", and then since then I've been growing steadily,
Yeah, I mean, so 6'9". What did doctors project you to be?
like 6'4",
Wait, what are you right now?
6'9".
6'9". So they predicted you to be 6'4". All right, because I
Yeah,
thought I heard you wrong. I'm like, wait, I thought you said you were 6'9". So they predicted you to be 6'4", and you've just exceeded what the
yeah,
doctors have thought. Dang.
yeah,
Have they given like a new prediction, or are they just kind of
yeah.
gonna let
Now,
you
now they're
ride?
saying I could be like anywhere from like staying the same to like 6'10", 6'11".
I mean, you could hit the 7 foot barrier, dude. That's wild.
Yeah,
How tall is your
hopefully.
dad?
He's not that. He's only like 6'3".
Okay, so he's pretty tall. I mean, I'm five
Yeah,
six, dude. He's a giant to me. Is your mom tall too?
like 5'8".
Okay, I mean, she's taller than me
Yeah,
too. So there you go.
yeah.
So, all right. So yeah, you come from pretty tall family, but that's wild, dude. Is there anybody in your family who's like super tall like that?
No, no one's above like 6'4".
Okay, so you are the guy. You are the
Yeah,
guy. Okay. That's great. So obviously you hit that spurt and you because I was just thinking, I'm like, dude, and I don't understand why Coach Cosmo would just I would make you play football, right? You wouldn't have to like honestly, dude, you wouldn't have to play much. But in goal line situations or like in red zone situations, like lining you up by yourself, teams have to account for you.
Oh, yeah,
Like
all pump. That's all I did in pump one. We call it the Breen Bomb. I'd run a route and they just throw it like a fade route and they just throw it to me. It'd be a touchdown every time.
that doesn't go away in high school, dude, because I
Yeah.
look at that and I say to myself, man, if they send nobody out there to go one on one with him, just lobbing the ball up, like you'd have to send two guys to you. If you went like three guys one way and went ISO you one on one, there has to be two guys over there. I got to talk to
Mhm.
Coach Costable. I mean, I don't know. You obviously you'd have to do it, but like, dude, you could be the greatest decoy of all time. They have to send two guys to you, and now you're playing 10 on 9 on the other side of the field. Like,
Yeah.
you have numbers. Like I'm just saying, I'm just trying to throw that out there. But
Yeah.
obviously, you're an incredible basketball player, and we'll stick to that. So, I said I started following you your sophomore season a little bit. As a freshman, did you get time as a freshman playing at all?
No, I was JV freshman year.
Okay. So obviously you played in JV. When you went into your sophomore year, did you feel like because as a coach, I've been seeing it more and more when I was coaching, especially towards my end of my tenure, that I was beginning to trust freshmen and sophomore for big time. Like my last guest on here was kid Cam McGuire, who now plays. I think he was going to play tackle for Williams, and he got hurt. He's out for the season. But he was a kid that was really, really, really good. And I've had other kids that kind of gone through that process of going through that. But our last guest that was on here, he went to Williams, part of the recruiting process and everything else. For you, when you're a sophomore, like going into that, were you just like, okay, like I could compete and get some playing time here, or was the growth spurt help with it?
At first, like when we played like summer league and fall ball going into it, my coach like didn't give it to me right away. Like I would still come off the bench there. And
Mhm.
going into it, I had no like expectations of being a starter. One of my goals was to be a starter by the end of the year, but I didn't think I was gonna like have it right away. But
Mhm.
once I got it, like I kind of just took it and ran with it. And then like my confidence started building up. Like at first I thought I was just gonna be like, like an off ball type of guy, like just playing my role. And then eventually, one of our star players, Matt, ended up getting hurt. And that was kind of like my chance. And that was when I took the role.
Yeah, I mean, so that offseason, right? Freshman and sophomore year, what are you doing differently than you maybe have not done before? Besides the hoop part, like what are you working out a lot more now? Were
Oh,
you
yeah.
like,
I'm working
yeah.
out a lot more. Like, mainly, I never really thought like I had to, but like the importance of like not even just like getting stronger, like the core strength and everything, and all the other things you need, like foot speed, like putting it all together has really helped me. Like obviously, even my basketball skills improved over the years, but what's really helped me take the leap is like getting my foot speed quicker and obviously getting stronger.
I mean, dude, it's wild. Like you're like I mean, if I count the whole football team that I had on, just guess wise, like you're the third group of people from Shawsheen that I've had on. There's something in the water in this area of like Wilmington, Billerica, like whatever, because it's like you guys are so mature, like speaking and knowing like what you need to work on and what you need to get better at as an athlete. But also these young guys coming in confident. I mean, we had Sid Tidsley on here as a sophomore. He was like all world everything, right? And then we had the
Yeah,
football team on last year. And here you are, a sophomore playing extremely well, and then junior having an incredible year. So you guys is just like it's toughness. There's something about like the mental toughness or something in the water about you guys that you're kind of different kids. I mean, you guys are Shawsheen's very good in a lot of different sports, not just like one sport. I mean, it's across the board that
yeah,
boys sports are incredible. So, to hear you kind of just talking, I'm like, man, I feel like I'm talking to a kid who's like in a second year of college, third year in college, talking about working out and the importance of it and working on his footwork and realizing you got to get better. Cause a lot of kids like don't think that way. Like they just think, oh, I'm a sophomore, I'm a junior. It's my time now. Now it's my time. And it's not working towards. I mean, do you see that a lot? Do you feel like your
oh
teammates
yeah,
are just tough?
yeah. I definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now talk about your junior year going into this year. Obviously, higher expectations for yourself, I'm sure. A year under your belt of playing with bigger, faster, stronger. You worked out in the offseason. Obviously, I don't have to question, you worked on technique and you know what you need to work on. But going to this junior year, was this like something for you that you feel like you had a lot to kind of prove and you felt like you could really put yourself on the map as far as one of the more consistent, dominant players in high school basketball in the state?
Yeah, definitely. Because I feel like sophomore year was kinda like no pressure on me, like, I could just play without any criticism, but this year, I definitely like, everyone was like, "Oh, Matt Breen, let's see if he can show up." And, the first few games, it took a little bit to get going, but once it's, like, the around the 4th or 5th game, that's when I just started everything was coming easy by then.
So what changed? Like what came easy then? Like what was something that maybe took you a little bit to click and then once it started clicking, it's like game
I think it
over?
was our team. We had, some team struggles in the beginning, I don't really wanna get too much into it, but,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
our chemistry wasn't the best, but once we started clicking, everything coming together, then, like, that's when everyone started playing their best basketball.
And just to add on the chemistry, man, like as a teacher in a classroom, like one of my biggest things is like my classroom culture needs to be so good. Like I need kids that never have talked to each other before by the middle of the year, I want them like being able to work in groups with each other and chat with each other and see each other outside of school and say hi to each other and not like I try to build up
Yeah,
because when you do that, your class is just like it clicks and it goes. And it's the same thing with coaching. Like the years that I've had success coaching, the one difference between that and no success is the team chemistry and like what the locker room's like after practice. Like some
exactly.
days you go in the locker room and you're just like, this team just no one talks to each other, no one gets along with each other, no one hangs out with each other. And then you coach some teams that they live and die for each other, and then you kind of see the records and you're like, well, this is the difference, like, right?
Yeah.
So that started clicking for you. Now for you, obviously your name's in the paper a little bit. People know who you are. You're a big imposing figure when you come in, you can dunk, which we'll talk about in a little bit. How much trash talk you getting from other teams fans when you go into their state? I mean, it must be like
Oh,
nonstop for
it's
you, dude.
endless.
Yeah,
They're all
so,
here.
like, what are things you
Yeah.
hear? I mean, you don't have to go into off-color stuff, but, like, what is some insults that people are throwing at you when you go there?
So, personally, I don't really like to get into, like, the talking trash, like, I don't say anything back, but,
Yep.
like, say someone saying something in the crowd and I hit a shot, I'll give give 'em a little look, and, sometimes I'll get, "Oh, he's just 6'9", that's all he can do, he's just tall." Like, that's mainly the only thing I get, like or they'll be like, "You're 6'9", you're still trash." Like, it's just all I get. It's
So
mainly just
okay,
height.
so you go in the stand. I mean, and for the most part, you must shut most people up. I mean, you guys had an extremely impressive record in the season,
Yeah.
so you're not losing too many games there. There's no better videos on Instagram when you see like those videos and it's like, oh, watch so and so torch this team for like 47 in high school, some professional, and it's like kids were just yapping at him in the stands and you're just like knocking down threes left and right, dunking
Yeah.
behind the back passes, like so I'm sure, and I wonder that with you. I was like, he must hear it from anybody. Where
Oh,
do you
it's
get it the
endless.
worst? Like, where is it the worst?
I'd say the worst was probably home game versus Kip Academy. I remember my trainer was there that I worked out with all summer. He was sitting right behind them, and they were saying stuff to me the whole game. And he started saying stuff to them, like telling them to shut up, and then they were on him. Like it was bad. It was, and they were saying stuff to everyone, but they were on. They were really disrespectful kids.
I mean, dude, I mean, I covered their football team last year. I know their football coach really well, but that's a tough school. Yeah, it's a tough
Yeah, it
school.
is. Yeah.
So that's interesting, man. So obviously your senior season, you're gonna get it even more, but like
Oh
you
yeah.
kind of expect it a little bit more. And that's a huge adjustment. I mean, that is a mental. I mean, it can go other way for kids. Like when
Oh
kids are
yeah.
on you in the gym and they're yelling and screaming, and you get cold and you miss and you have an off game, and they can get in your head very
Yeah.
easily. So it shows your mental toughness a little bit
Yeah.
too.
I love it. It gets me going. It makes me play better.
Yeah, I mean, it does. I mean, people that kind of have that like killer mentality, like that's why they have that killer mentality.
Yeah.
Um, so you mentioned like, oh, I'm 6'9", you're 6'9", like when people do talk trash, what's a part of your game maybe that, beside people just think of you as a guy who plays by the rim and can dunk the ball because of your size, but maybe what's a part of your game that people don't know about that you feel is extremely strong with it?
I feel like my shooting stroke was really consistent. I mean, I shot 37% from three this year, and obviously, I feel like that's one of the better 3-point percentages in the league. And my ability to take people off the dribble, like I can play off the perimeter and get to the rim pretty easy too. So I'm not really just setting the block and catch the ball and lay it up. I can take the ball down the court too and shoot it too.
So talk about that a little bit more because that isn't very interesting to me. And man, that's like, I mean, I'm not saying you are, but that's like Porzingis esque, right? Like I look at that being like that's the type of player you can shoot the three and play inside. Like that's kind of a tough player to play against, especially in
Yeah.
today's day and age in basketball. But how are you working on that stuff in the offseason? Like, I know the football world for me with like quarterbacks and receivers and working on timing and route running and seven, like that's how we kind of work on that stuff. But for you, when you mentioned shooting, is it really just as simple as going out and just kind of shooting baskets, or are there certain drills that you kind of work on to get your shooting a lot better?
So, it's actually as of recently I started doing this. Before, I thought same thing as like I just thought I'd go outside, shoot threes, I'd get better.
Mhm.
But as of recently, like um when the season ended, I started really focusing on getting like my form to a T. So my form will always be the same, but the only thing that will change is the power in my legs when I shoot. And I've really started to notice a difference when I do that. So I'm doing that. I'm shooting like 150 just straight form shots a day, and I'll get at least 300 to 500 makes a day. And I'm not even really focusing on shooting threes right now. I'm just getting my form perfect, and the threes just come along after that because my form will be perfect. And then I'll do 30 minutes of ball handling every single day,
Wow. And you do it every day?
every day.
And do you work with someone?
I don't.
Oh, so you're disciplined enough to kind of do it yourself and work
Yeah,
and outdoor court, indoor court, or just
outdoor
wherever?
court.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty impressive, dude. That really, really is. Um, I mean, I'll ask you this, then I'll kind of flip it a little bit. You're working hard, you're doing this. I mean, who's a young guy in your program right now that you could give a shout out to? That's someone that, maybe you see in yourself, or you see yourself in them a little bit, or someone in the program that you feel like as you're listening to this at some point, they're going to hear the stuff that you're doing and be like, man, this kid might take that step and do that thing.
I'd probably say Dylan Pratt is a football player as well. I mean, he's coming into the tech, he had high expectations, and he was a swing as a freshman. And this is his sophomore year, this past year. He came in, he was like sixth, seventh man coming off the bench. It took him a little to get going, but halfway through the year, he got a starting spot, and he was lights out. He hit like a couple threes a game, kind of like the role I played my sophomore year. So I really see myself in him, and I think he's going to take a big step this year.
Now for you, that's like, I mean, boom, you just like nailed an analysis of a player and you gave in depth there. How vocal are you on the court? How vocal are you on the bench? Are you kind of a silent assassin, lead by example type person, or are you kind of like this with players? Like, let's go. I work hard. Like, I can be tough on anybody.
Yeah, I like to talk to all the players, and like I'm hard on them sometimes, but I'm not always like just screaming at them. I like to give them positive talk too because I want them to play well.
Are you the biggest? Are you the most vocal leader on your team? Would you say, or are you?
I'd say so.
Yeah, well, that's a
I'd
great
say
thing
me,
because
me and Frank Moreau, another. He was a junior captain as well.
and that's great because and I say that and I ask that because that's just leadership like that in a locker room, when you have that automatically, oof, I mean, that is like a coach's dream. And I mean, like, say that because you're with me here, but it's the truth. Like, when we go back to even what we were talking about earlier with like classroom culture or locker room culture, it's like the same exact thing, like with leadership in the locker room, And I
Yeah,
think when you get a taste of it when you're younger, when you hit that junior year, it's like it's almost like having like a repeat senior year in a sense because you've had that experience as a young player and now
yeah,
you get a crack at it to play well and then you get an additional crack at it um now as a senior and expectations being super high. Is there a place you hate to play? I mean, you mentioned Kip as being just like a really tough place as far as fans go, but is there a
yeah.
place you played at now a couple times you're like, I hate this gym? Or do you just
Nothing,
destroy every gym you go into so it doesn't matter?
nothing in like particular to do with the fans, but I'd say the worst court I like hate playing on is probably Lowell Catholic. But in like a everyone else's opinion, Lynn Tech, it's like a huge field house. So, someone airballs, the ball rolls all the way down. Like it's so loud in there. I mean, I love it because it just like makes the game more intense. But that's a really hard place to play.
So let me ask you that because I've always wondered this when I went, like I follow a lot of stuff with the Middlesex Magic, Coach Giordano. I had him on here. I went to high school with him. I know him pretty well. And I sometimes see kids playing like giant field houses that there's multiple courts and they're going sometimes in different directions and so on. When you play at a place like that where you used to like playing at a gym that's maybe like more confined and has a tight, it's loud, blah, blah,
Mm.
versus kind of playing like an open concept where there'd be multiple games going on at once or like, does that mess with your depth perception at all? It just doesn't
Definitely,
matter.
I'd say it does. It's like
Yeah.
if when you're looking at the backboard and there's nothing, there's just like room behind it. There's no wall or anything. That definitely messes with my perception.
Yeah, like I look at that all the time and I think, man, like how do like I feel like I would struggle like
Yeah,
mightily because I lose focus anyways. And I feel like in a game, just like, yeah, you're so used to maybe looking at the corner, the kick out for like it just look everything just looks different. So
yeah,
I was curious how that was for players, like if they feel that struggle in their game.
yeah.
Um, recruiting process. I mean, we talked a little bit this off air, but obviously your numbers, man. Again, 18 points a game, 9 rebounds, averaging 3 blocks as a junior. So those numbers, I mean, I have my idea of projections, but you're basically averaging a double double. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're averaging next season high 20s with maybe close to mid double digit rebounds per game. Like, I think you could easily get better by the way that you sound like you're working and the maturity and kind of the discipline you have. Yeah, if you continue to do what you do, it's not many high school kids doing what you're doing. You're still growing. You played in that, like you have experience. Yeah, I think you're gonna do well. So the recruiting process of this, for our audience that listens, is, I just said I had Cam McGuire on. He went over his recruiting process. He ended up, going to Lawrence Academy and transferring out and kind of going that route and then figuring out from there. Have schools reached out to you? Have they been talking to you? Anything you can share or want to share or don't want to share is fine. But for our young audience out there, man, what's the process been like that for you?
So start off with a lot of prep schools have been reaching out, and it's very tempting to want to go there, but I kind of want to leave a legacy at Shawsheen Tech. I could have an opportunity to score 1,000 points. Hopefully, we can make a deep run in the D3 state tournament this year, well, this next year, and hopefully we can bring a state folk championship. So I kind of put that aside, and if I need it, I'll do a post grad year. But as far as college recruiting, my coach, Joe Gore, has been handling a lot of it for me. Like he'll be emailing coaches, they'll email him back, such and such. And um, a lot of D3s have reached out to him, and a few have reached out to me as well, and some D2s as well. And the D3s that have reached out to me, there's some good schools like Keene State,
Hmm.
um, Emerson College, and then some colleges outside of like New England, like your Sinus in Pennsylvania, then Bard in New York. So a few have reached out to me, but mainly they contact him and he deals with it.
That's
So I
good.
really
Yeah.
give a lot of prop to him because he does a lot for me.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to have a coach who understands the process and is willing to help you with the process, because coaching's one. I mean, this is why I started this podcast. I mean, coaches do a lot and they do it for a little, and their time is not like a 40-hour 9 to 5 type job. Their job is 7 days a week, and it varies on weekends and what you got to
Yeah,
do, whatever. So that's a whole added element. So that's nice to have a coach who's willing to help you with that process and make it easier for you.
yeah.
That's great. So you're at the tech. What do you take? Are you do like shop or anything like that? Like, what are
Oh
you
yeah,
into right
I'm
now?
taking HVAC right now.
Okay. So going to school, would you want to like, and I'm just asking this, Rand. I mean, you take that, like, would you go to school, maybe even learn like the business side of that a little bit as far as like how to run something like that?
Oh
Or
yeah,
like,
definitely. That's what I plan to do.
okay, that's what I
Yeah,
kind of okay. I was like, okay, I wonder where the connection is. All right. So that makes perfect sense. You understand really how to run a business at the end of the day and also being hands-on and knowing how to do it. So it's like,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's great actually. It's smart. Yeah, you're gonna do very well for yourself, man. I tell you. Let's talk about dunking. I mean, 6'9", dude, you're throwing down in games, obviously. What's the biggest dunk you've thrown down, most memorable dunk, or just talk about being able to do that in a high school game and the feeling of being able to dunk in a game. I mean, I
yeah,
obviously will never be able to do that in my life, so I'm curious.
yeah. I mean, my most memorable ever was probably it was the semifinal for the state Voc. We were playing Worcester Tech, and it was a close game, like 3 or 4 minutes left, and it was like a really defensive minded game. Like both teams were struggling, and we couldn't really get going. And we came down. It was like a 2-on-3 fast break. It was me and my point guard Ryan Copson, and all season like he'd throw lobs to me. Like we practiced it all the time, and like it wasn't really expected because there were three guys. He just
Yeah.
threw it up, and I caught it like all the way back here, and
And you slammed it.
I wasn't even expecting to throw it down, and I did it, and like it was like a huge like momentum pusher, and then we ended up winning by like 10. Like it was just like it
And for
was really
you, it
crazy.
must have been like an adrenaline rush in a sense
Oh yeah,
because You probably dunked a million times, but just something about doing it in a big moment in front of a crowd,
Yeah, all
it's
the
everything
pressure and
about.
like, all my teammates are so supportive. Like everyone's going crazy. Like this is like such a good moment.
I mean, dude, that is awesome. That is real
Yeah.
cool. Um, when was the first time you ever threw down?
So my first time ever dunking was probably freshman year, and then my first in-game dunk was in AAU in like July, and then my first in-game the high school season was in the first scrimmage. I had like 3 dunks at scrimmage. Like this year, I've been able to dunk since sophomore year pretty well, but like mentally, I never got past that block that like I could just go over people and dunk. And
Yeah.
I still have that a little bit, but I'm starting to get better with it. And so I think this past year I had like 25 to 30 dunks this year.
25, 30 dunks in season. Damn, that's
Yeah.
pretty good, man. Um, do you have one you're working on? Is there like an ideal when I obviously if I say ideal, you'd be like, oh yeah, 360 behind the back, whatever. But like realistic one that like you feel like you would love to attempt in a game that you think you could like complete and actually do it.
Oh, and in a game probably a windmill because I can do that consistently, like on my own. So I'm really if I get like wide open fast break, no one's near me, I get like one step like by myself. I feel like I'd be able to do it.
All right, dude. I love that. Hopefully we catch a game yours next year and you throw down for us. That'd be amazing, actually.
Yeah, I
You'd be
got
the
you
first
guys.
dunk I think we've ever seen, actually. That would be
Yeah.
incredible. What do your coaches think about that? Like, obviously, I don't know many coaches that have kids that can like throw down a high school game and dunk. Like, as far as obviously you being able to dunk like in game when it's right, like something like an alley oop or a kid trying to throw it off the back. Do coaches go bananas when you guys try to attempt that stuff in game?
No, I mean my coach loves it. I mean my coach like anytime I don't dunk it, he's like screaming at me to dunk the ball.
Oh,
So
there you go.
yeah,
Okay, so you have nothing to worry about then.
yeah,
That's even better.
yeah.
Um, and speaking of your coaches, I mean, obviously, I have a lot of respect for the football coaches, and a lot of them also parallel as the wrestling coaches. So I got to work with a lot of them in the fall and in the winter, and
Mm,
getting to know these guys really well and chatting with them on Instagram has been pretty fun. Um, Talk about your coaching staff a little bit. Obviously, you mentioned your coach has done a great job for you as far as the recruiting process has gone. But then there's the other aspect of it as far as developing your game and team chemistry. And you guys, you see them every single day, at least 6 days a week, most likely. So,
yeah.
um, talk about your coaching staff a little bit and how much they've helped the development of your game.
Yeah, so I really like our coaching staff. It's like brings a good balance. So our head coach Joe Gore, he's not like a screamer, but he's definitely hard on us. Like he's not like the type of guy to be like all positive feedback. Get some negativity, and some kids take it the wrong way. But I like a coach that's like hard on you because it makes me want to try harder. Because like if a coach is
No,
constantly telling me, "Oh, you're the best player," like it's not. I'm not gonna have any motive to work. So I like a coach that's hard on me. So that's really good. And then his brother Mike Gore, um, I did a lot of work with him over the season. He's was kind of like um resembled my game and he played like a lot of post work, and so he really teaches me a lot of that stuff and helps with my footwork and everything. So I give a lot of props to him. And then Coach Hodnett, going back on the coaches that are hard on you, he's like all hard on you. Like no matter what I do, like it's just like I gotta always do something better, and I love it. Like he makes me the player I am, and I'm really glad he's one of my coaches. And then Coach Bendel, he's a positive talk guy, always talking positive. And then Doug Pratt, he's also a wrestling coach and a football coach. I really like him as a coach. Hard coach that's hard on you and everything. So
that's great. And it's so funny. Like every coach, like, yeah, hard, hard. And you
yeah,
like love it. Like you're smiling and grinning and like laughing, like, because you're probably thinking of stuff they've said to you as you're just
yeah,
talking about them and like, right. And like, I get it. So, like, it's just funny that because kids don't take it's serious. Like I always say, like when kids ask me why they weren't playing, my response always was, if you're gonna ask me a real question, I'm gonna give you a real answer. So
yeah,
do you really want to, do you want the answer to it? And some kids are like, no, thanks, coach. And some kids are like, yeah, I do, because I want to play, I want to get better. Tell me what I need to do. So being able to handle the coaching, tough coaching. I mean, it only gets tougher, I'm sure, when you're in college and you're playing with a bunch of kids who are just as good as you, right? And coaches
Yeah.
working you. And that sometimes separates even at the college level. Some kids are so used to hearing it all the way through high school, how great they are and awesome they are. And you don't have to really coach them. You let them do whatever they want. And then they get to college and it kind of balances off a little bit. And now they're not as coachable, maybe as someone who is equal to them, who has been extremely coachable their entire life. So
Yeah.
that's a really, really good quality. I gotta ask your basketball intros because when I covered football, I've never seen a high school football entrance like that in my entire life. I had
Oh yeah.
friends like texting me like after they looked at my Instagram, being like, "Are you covering a Division 3 college game tonight locally?" I'm like, "No, dude, this is Shawsheen Tech High School. Like, it is wild here. It's like a DJ spinning, basically, right? And
Yeah.
you got purple smoke coming out of the air. You got kids going crazy. Like the atmosphere is electric. Like the field, then you have the cart we ate food off of was
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like it is an incredible atmosphere when you go there. And then in wrestling, the lights are flickering, kids are
Oh
running
yeah.
around their circle, wrestling. Like if I was in a away team, like who the hell are these kids? You know?
Yeah.
Is basketball entrance similar?
I wouldn't say so much as the entrance, but I'd say our atmosphere is definitely a hard atmosphere to play in because we have a small gym, but a lot of people go to the games and it gets really loud in there. So anyone hits a shot, the like crowd just like erupts and like you can't hear anything. It's like it's the best. I love our gym.
And what type of music you guys warming up to?
Just rap.
Is it all like 90s hip hop?
It's a lot of it is, yeah, because that's
Dude, like every
yeah,
team I've covered is like, and it's music like I listen to when I played. So I'm like with the camera, like, Coach Constable, I'll tell me to, like that's just like the mood you're in, And then
yeah,
wrestling, it was the same thing. It was all like Biggie and like Bone Thugs and Harmony. I'm like, oh my God. Like,
yeah,
and the music is just, it's like, it's the right volume. It's like I'm big into music with this podcast. Like, I believe like a lot of our reels that have done very well, or a lot of our trailers that do really well, I think music sucks people in, like in your
mhm,
stories and everything. People pay
yeah,
attention more. They want to read something more because it's a catchy song that they're kind of seeing all the stuff, whether they're
yeah,
truly interested in it or not. So yeah, but Shawsheen, like, I tell everybody, I'm like, I used to think like I gave Stone the title for a little bit because they were like a tough, like everything I covered with them was just like awesome. But
mhm,
Shawsheen has like taken it and ran with like the next level. Like I talk about it, and everybody who asks me on a podcast, the best place I've covered so far, I'm like Shawsheen Tech. Like I don't even hesitate and say it anymore. So very, very cool all around what you guys do. And then for you, talk about just like what would be your advice to like young kids, freshmen or sophomores? And we kind of talked a little bit about this before when we gave a shout out to a kid, but what would be your advice to as far as like a kid ends his freshman season? Think about how you ended your freshman season. And now here you are close to be going into next year, your senior season. You know what you worked on, you know what you've done. Like, what would be your advice to young kids out there that are looking to make that push into their sophomore season to get maybe some playing time or be the sixth or seventh guy and coming off the bench?
to really just use any motivation that say you had an off year, use that as motivation going into your next year to prove everyone wrong that you are the player that you can be, and just keep your head down, keep working, and then show everyone the work you've done at tryouts and everything, and prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very impressed talking to you today, like, just, like, listening to you and the maturity. Like I said, like, I've covered a few other kids from Shawsheen, and that's, like, the one thing I keep saying about every kid I've talked to, like, "Man, they're so mature. Man, they're so mature." Like, and I see it in you, and obviously, you know what your future is. Like, you also know what you wanna go to school for, so it's not like you're picking a school necessarily just to play basketball at. You're also picking a school based off of a career path that you know you kinda wanna go down, so
Yeah.
that's also part of your thought process, as I'm sure. Um, What's like your biggest like what's the biggest thing you're looking for a school outside of like obviously the academic of what you want? What's something about a school that you'd be looking at, even if you did prep for a year and then you eventually go to college? Like, what would be something that you look at as like a must for you?
One thing I'm really torn on is find out what size of a school I want. I don't know if I want to go to a huge school or a small school because um, something my doctor actually told me is that you can't turn a small school into a big school, but you can turn a big school into a small school, depending on your circle. So I kind of want to go to a big school, just get that experience.
Yeah.
So That's kind
I
of what I'm
like that
yeah.
advice. Damn, that's your doctor, you said?
Yeah,
Is he a philosopher too? Jeez, that's pretty
yeah,
good, man.
I
That
know.
is really good. I'm gonna go to that doctor. Yeah, and I think it's always even when kids make that decision whether they're playing sports or not, right? Like, well, if they want to go to that big time school, like in this area, I'm sure, like in the last 10 years, like going to UConn for basketball is like
Oh, yeah,
awesome, right? Like they going to school and going to those type of games and seeing that atmosphere, or going to like a UNC or going to like a Duke, right? Like
yeah,
you go to schools like that, it's just like a killer atmosphere. But going to a small school too, like some people like being the big fish in a small pond as well, and
yeah,
knowing everybody and being comfortable. And sometimes that's the best thing for your mental health too. So all that stuff weighs into what it is that you really truly want. Just yeah, it's great. And you don't seem like you really have yourself kind of in a bubble of exactly what you're looking for. You're just kind of looking for certain things and then whatever matches well with you. So
yeah.
that's awesome. Well, listen, I'm really glad that we got you on here today. It's funny, like your mom is probably one of our biggest fans of Beyond Podcast. She like
Oh,
likes
yeah.
all of our stuff.
She
She's
loves
always
it,
looking
yeah.
at our stuff, and I love it. And she worked with both my son and daughter, Ruby and Anthony, and they loved her. So it is kind of cool to be following you and then making the connection that was your mom. I'm like, wait, that's so yeah, that was really cool. So I'm glad that we were able to kind of get you on here today. Obviously, talk about the season that you had, but let's stay in touch. We do have some Beyond All Stars that we follow. Sid at your school is one of them. Maybe we can chat, but I'd love to kind of get you on board with it too.
Okay.
So we can chat off here most certainly. But best of luck. Anything you need from us, and even going forward, like any video you have of yourself in a game, if you're throwing down an AAU game or something like that, or hitting a big three, or doing a blocking the ball out into the parking lot, like send it to us. Like we'll gladly tag you, post it, and show you off and shout you out, and tag who you want us to tag. Tell us to tag certain schools or people, whatever, we'll do it. So
Alright, thank you.
yeah, absolutely. So make sure we stay in touch. But guys, for us, we got a kind of a busy week coming up. We got a lot of guests. The Mass Pirates are still away, so our Mass Pirates coverage has kind of been dead until they get back on the 18th. We're super excited, but we've been working with the Boston Glory Ultimate Frisbee team. They're undefeated at home. I think it's because of us and our coverage, truthfully, but they're also a pretty good team, so we'll give them a little credit there. But Matthew Breen from Shawsheen Tech, thank you so much for coming on Beyond Podcast. And guys, I'm your host, Anthony Petralis. Till next time.